I suggest we can start now. And as we did in the first part of the day, we have one individual presentation, one intervention from the representative of the Bulgarian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And then we'll move to the session, to the panel discussion, which I will be moderating this time. I'm very happy to have with us here once again a top representative of the Bulgarian Chamber of Commerce. It was Mr. Simeonov last year. It is Mr. Todorov today, to share with us a few thoughts on the Bulgarian energy industry, most important topics at the moment, I suppose. Mr. Todorov, thank you very much for taking the time, and looking forward to hear you.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear partners, it is a pleasure for me to be presented here and to express some thoughts and some of the positions which is important for the Bulgarian Chamber of Commerce and Industry concerning the energy market. Energy market is very dynamic during the last year, and this is one of the main topics concerning our discussions with the government and also between other national representative employers organization. And as an employers organization, we created a lot of statements and presented these statements in front of the government and also in front of the national parliament. The key issue, according to Bulgaria Chamber of Commerce and Industry, concerning the energy market and especially the electricity prices at that moment, is to keep this compensation mechanism till the end of this year. Of course, there is a discussion that it's possible this mechanism to be kept till the middle of the year, because there is a special European regulation. But we think that the government and the parliament should find the way to keep the mechanism in function till the end of this year, because for every company it's important to have a perspective. Not only a short term for 1, 2, 3 months, but also for a middle term perspective. Because it's not possible to run and to manage a business without information for the future electricity prices. Unfortunately, if you see the situation in our energy exchange, you can see that more than 80% of the market consists in the deals a day forward. And especially in the energy intensive sector, normally the majority of the companies should have long-term contracts, but unfortunately in Bulgaria this is not the case. And we expect from our government to make some changes in this independent electricity exchange to encourage companies to start signing such contracts, especially in the field of electricity intensive industry. Bulgaria, compared with the other countries, not only in the European Union, but also in the region, we have a very big competitive advantage, because in Bulgaria we have very big state-owned electricity companies. And also we are net exporter of electricity. In some days, we export about 40% of the electricity production, which is a huge figure. And because of this advantage, we create this mechanism. The dividend income from the state-owned companies, this money goes to the a special electricity fund, and from this fund the money goes and to cover this mechanism for compensation. Of course, there is a decision of our parliament that this compensation mechanism should exist till the end of this year, but there is one condition. The government should approve a special program, and unfortunately our government adopted such programs maybe one or per 2 months, and this future perspective, which were the core idea of this 1 year mechanism, now we cannot reach this successful goals concerning the perspective, but this is the situation on the market. If you see the prices in August 2022, the prices reach more than 1,800 level for megawatt per hour, which was a very high price in the Bulgarian market. But now the situation is changing. For the January 2023, the price was 300 level for megawatt per hour. For February is 273 level. For April is 212 level. And now we are thinking that for April 2023 we can reach 199 level, and the mechanism will be only as a good insurance not to be put into force, because the price will be less than 200 level for megawatt per hour. So this is very important for us as an employers organization, this mechanism to be keep into force till the end of this year. Concerning the gas prices, there also a big discussion among us and also with the government, because we want to be created such mechanism also for gas prices. Unfortunately, this is not the case, and you can see that the gas consumption in Bulgaria, but not only in Bulgaria, but in many European countries, decrease in the last year. In some countries, you can see that the consumption decreases more than 55%, which is too high. In Bulgaria, it's also the same situation, of course, with not such high figures. But maybe one mechanism for the gas prices will give the companies this motivation to invest in gas installations, because at that moment this is not the situation in our country. We also issued a statement against the gas prices before a month. This statement came from the Association of Bulgarian Employers Organization. Bulgaria Chamber of Commerce and Industry is part of this organization, and for this year we are rotating president of this organization. Our statement was against the prices which were with more than 30% higher than the prices in TTF in Netherlands. And because of this statement and opposition from employers organization, you can see we had some discussions with the state and with the government, and we can see now that the prices for May 2023 are compared with the prices in TTF. So this is a good news, but unfortunately at that moment we cannot see the stability in the prices concerning electricity and gas supply. So we expect from the government to keep this compensation mechanism and to create such mechanism for gas prices. I think that these are maybe one of the most important keynotes, and I expect in the discussion to see other comments or other important topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Todorov, for your presentation and for the ideas you shared with us. Please stay just a couple of minutes with us. If there are any questions or comments, please use this opportunity. I have one or two questions. I'll start with one related to the gas price. I am not sure that I understood what is the relationship you presented between the gas price and the investment in installations in industry. Is the high gas price an incentive to invest, or I don't know exactly what you have in mind?
The problem is with uncertainty. So maybe for a decade the official policy was, and because of the lower prices, for example, January 2021, the price in Bulgaria, the gas price was 21 leva for megawatt per hour. Now you can see this is for maybe 4 or 3 times higher. And in August or September 2022, the prices reach 353 leva. So this uncertainty concerning the prices is not a good motivation for companies to invest in such installations. And you know there were a discussion
in installation using gas as a resource.
Yes.
Oh, I understand. Okay. And another question was how did the business industrial segment in Bulgaria cope with this compensation scheme? I suppose that for most of them, having a capped price for electricity was a good thing. At the same time, for the energy sector, for investments in renewables, for example, were they affected? Were projects delayed because of these situations or not?
No, there is not a problem with the renewable energy sources and the investment in this sector, because these big profits that this company, especially in the private sector, Bulgaria didn't adopt legislation to increase the taxes on these big profits compared with the other countries. So the motivations now exist at that moment in Bulgaria. So the companies invest in such projects. For example, now there are 30,000 megawatts new projects which apply to be to receive approval to start.
I see. Okay, thank you. If no question or comments, that would be all, Mr. Todorov. Thank you very much. We'll move now to the panel discussion, and I invite the speakers from the second part to join Mr. Enchev. Thank you very much for being here, and welcome. Kostantsa Rangelova, Senior Energy and Climate Analyst at the Center for the Study of Democracy, and Cristian Athanasovici, Business Development Manager with Kawasaki Gas Turbine Europe. I will moderate, and I will join you here for the moment. As we did in the first part, we have 2 presentations prepared, so I will ask you to be there. Each of you, the speakers, will have 5 to 10 minutes for the initial remarks, and then maybe a short dialogue. I was expected that the first part would focus much more on new energy and in renewables, but it was quite a balanced conversation. Gas had a very important place in the conversation earlier. Let's see now. cooperation is the main theme, cooperation between the countries, but also I suggest you to have in mind cooperation between technologies and companies, various association organizations that can move the things forward for the energy industry and for the society as a whole. I will start by giving the floor to Mrs. Kostantsa Rangelova. We'll follow the presentation.
Thank you. Excellent. So I will try to keep this very brief. My presentation will be mostly about natural gas import security in the context of energy and climate security, and looking into Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece, and then how we can measure how this security can change depending on the pathways we decide in terms of our energy mix, in terms of energy policies, and different measures. And the Center for the Study of Democracy piloted the Energy and Climate Security Risk Index, which is a policy instrument that tries to measure energy and climate security based on 4 pillars. So we look at geopolitical risk, we look at affordability of energy, the reliability of the system, and sustainability indicators. And specifically for my presentation today, I will be talking about part of the geopolitical risk factors that we look at. And this is the import security risk for natural gas. And the way we define security of natural gas imports is based on import dependency. So for example, a country that is 100% dependent on imports to meet its demand already has a huge risk embedded in that. We also look at the share of natural gas in the economy and in the energy mix as a whole, to also account for the fact that even a 100% dependent country might not face such a huge risk if natural gas plays a minor role, such as, for example, in Bulgaria to some extent. And then we look at disruption risk, which depends on one hand on diversity of supply, and on the other hand on the reliability of the sources of imports, and we look at freedom scores. So we use Freedom House data to measure the weighted average freedom score of the import mix. And the results are quite interesting. So these are the index results for Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece compared to the EU benchmark. And actually the data tells us a very interesting story. So first of all, you can see that from 2014 up until 2021, which is when we have the latest data points from Eurostat to use, we had a significant increase of the import risk on the EU level, but also in countries such as Romania and Greece. And this is actually very telling about what we were missing in terms of policy direction over the last several years. So we were adopting natural gas as a transition fuel European-wide as the standard approach. And this led to the increase of use of natural gas across countries. And actually, Italy and Germany played a huge role driving up the EU-level risk between 2014 and 2021. And at the same time, this increase of natural gas demand came together with higher import dependency, and also higher dependency on Russia in particular. So this led to a huge increase of the risk. And it's very important to mention that 2014 is a very important year because this is the year of the annexation of Crimea. And this is basically a chart that tells us that we missed a lot of warning signs between that and 2021. And actually these risks that were building up until 2021 actually materialized with the invasion of Ukraine, and we are now facing the consequences in terms of prices and supply disruptions. Now, we tried to look at the future and how it might look like in terms of security risks for this particular indicator for the 3 countries. And we used external scenarios to assess the level of risk and how each of these scenarios would perform in terms of risk. So we look at the EU reference scenario, which is a baseline scenario provided by the European Commission. and it basically takes into account current policies and measures of member states. The Fit for 55 mixed scenario is also based on the EU reference scenario. It also comes from the European Commission, and it looks at a European Green Deal aligned scenario that combines carbon price signal and intensification of national policies for decarbonization in the buildings and the transport sector. And the final scenario that we look at is the accelerated gas phase-out scenario. This is actually a very long-standing work we have been doing together with several partners across Europe, including Wuppertal Institute, for example, and Artelis. And we try to model a scenario where we have at the same time a very ambitious coal phase-out strategy, but gas is not used as a transition fuel. And it's actually minimized, its use is minimized, of course, taking into account security of supply concerns. But overall, we have a mix of policies that incentivize a switch away from natural gas. And here is the results, the 2021 versus 2020 versus 2030 difference in terms of the level of risk in the three scenarios. So the red bars would give you the GEXIT or the accelerated gas phase-out scenarios. And you can see that the greatest reduction of risk comes from these policies and measures that reduce as much as possible, but not fully, natural gas demand by 2030. In the case of Bulgaria and Greece, we have a 50% reduction of risk compared to 2021. And in Romania, we have a 100% reduction of the risk, which actually reflects the fact that in this scenario, Romania becomes a net exporter of natural gas, which completely raises the import security risk. And what is also quite interesting to say is that if you look at Greece, the reference scenario actually performs better than the Fit for 55 scenario. And this is a reflection of the fact that in the Fit for 55 scenario, the assumptions used in this scenario by the European Commission, gas is used as a transition fuel, so natural gas demand actually increases and import security risks also increase. What is also important to mention is that, of course, this doesn't, these scenario, especially the GEXIT scenario, does not assume a full phase out of natural gas by 2030, but it sees a 6 BCM reduction compared to the reference scenario. So this is quite substantial. Now, these are just a couple of charts that show the buildings and the industry sector pathways for the accelerated gas phase-out scenario. So the kinds of policies and measures that are foreseen with this accelerated gas phase-out trajectory. And efficiency gains are the most important ones that drive the reduction of natural gas use, but we also have electrification on the one hand. Also in the industry sector, we have industrial heat pumps deployment, especially for low heat applications. And, most of all, we have of course, efficiency gains. And also for the high temperature processes, we see higher use of biomass use. And then in the building sector, the main aspect is, of course, again, efficiency. And we can say that both Bulgaria and Romania have a huge potential in terms of energy efficiency gains in the building sector. So we do see that being maximized in this scenario. Now, additionally to the gas demand trajectory, we did an analysis of what the import mix might look like for the three countries with respect to the gas import requirements in each scenario. And we see that in Romania, the accelerated gas phase-out scenario, which is basically the one that you see over here, this is the scenario where Romania actually becomes a net exporter of natural gas. And of course, this is assuming a very conservative outlook in terms of natural gas production in Romania. So if we have more ambitious gas production trajectory, we might even see higher exports out of Romania, contributing to the security of both Bulgaria and Greece in terms of imports. For Bulgaria, the picture is slightly different. So here we have, of course, a huge reduction of the risk by 2030 in the accelerated gas phase-out scenario. But still, we do have some reliance on Russia. And here, it's very important to say that when we show Russia as a source of natural gas. Of course, right now we can claim that Russia is not officially part of our import mix for natural gas, but it is true that Turk Stream continues to run at full capacity, and indirectly, Russian natural gas continues to play an important role for security of, basically for ensuring natural gas import requirements in Southeast Europe. And for Bulgaria, a lot of the diversification actually comes from Azerbaijan, and here the role of IGB is quite crucial. But of course, without any major increase of capacity, we still see some reliance on natural gas by 2030 in terms of Russia. And for Greece, we already have a very mixed very diversified import mix. And in the accelerated gas phase-out scenario, the demand reduction is sufficient to fully reduce the reliance on Russian gas. And in the Fit for 55 scenario, we actually have higher imports from Russia compared to the reference scenario, and we have higher import requirements overall. Now, just to conclude, our analysis shows that accelerating the phase-out of natural gas is critical for reducing import risks and for dealing with the challenges we are now facing in terms of prices and security of supply concerns. Of course, full phase-out by 2030 is not feasible, but we still see huge benefits in terms of import risk reduction if such policies are applied. We also need targeted policies that reflect these needs. So, for example, incentivizing energy efficiency, accelerating the deployment of alternative technologies, and also the deployment of renewables. And of course, one of the elements that hasn't been touched upon quite significantly throughout this presentation, but should not be forgotten, is about empowering energy poor consumers, because they're the ones that suffer the most from this transition, and we need them to be not just on board, but they need to be part of this transition and protected by price risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Kostantsa. Please join us here. I will take another approach than Julian earlier, and I will have all presentation and then the discussion. But for the moment, just one clarification from your part. What is the meaning of the term gas exit? Is it related with gas phasing out, gas being phased out, or gas imports being phased out?
Gexit is actually the term of the nickname of the project we had in terms of creating this scenario, and it basically stands for exiting natural gas. Of course, that's only feasible by 2050. By 2030, that's still too far away.
Okay, because I saw in Romania, for example, it was zero risk if the gas from Neptune Deep project will come in place, but it doesn't mean no gas.
No, not at all. Actually, the demand for natural gas in all three countries remains quite substantial by 2030. It's just that the import reliance on Russia decreases substantially by 2030, and then by 2050 we are already looking at, other questions related to sustainability rather than reducing import risk.
Thank you. We'll come back to this idea. It's very interesting and a very daring enterprise to build up such an index and everything around it. I will invite Cristian Athanasovici for coming here and having this presentation. I think it is ready here on the screen. I will move there for a better view on the screen.
Thank you, Gabriel. Hello to everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you again here. So my name is Cristian Athanasovici, and I am the representative of Kawasaki Gas Turbine, the business development manager responsible for Southeast Europe market. Kawasaki is very well known by the motorbikes, but it's a huge group, and inside of this group we have a big energy division and engineering plant. So I will go further with my presentation. But before to start to present our products and what we are doing, I would like to start with this slide, which say why cogeneration represents a solution beside all other type of energy solutions. And you can see here in this slide that for photovoltaics, for example, you can use the light, but what's happened over the night when you have not the battery storage? For heat, for example, you can use the solar panels, but also what you are doing overnight if you have not a storage for heat. Heat pumps, same. Heat pumps has an electricity consumption, and if you take the electricity from photovoltaics or from wind, what's happened when you have not all the conditions to produce such kind of electricity? So for this region, the cogeneration doesn't mind what kind of fuel is using, like natural gas, like biomass or biogas or hydrogen, don't mind. The cogeneration solution represent the support of renewables, and vice versa. The renewables make more green the cogeneration solution. So I can say that the energy approach of EU is based on 4 pillars, let's say the 4D. So the first D is decarbonization, the second D is decentralization, the third is digitalization, and the fourth is distributed energy generation. This is very important, the fourth one. Why? I try to come with the energy source close to the consumer in order to decrease the losses in the transport network. Don't mind what kind of network, electricity network or heat network. Okay, so coming back to Kawasaki, and I will make later the link beside the beside the 2 slides and our products. As I told you, Kawasaki, it's a huge group. They are producing a lot of equipments like rolling stones, like engines for aerospace, like motorbikes, robotics, and so on. But we have a big energy division. And this energy division has a daughter company in Europe located in Germany and a small representative office in Romania, which is responsible for Southeast Europe market. What we are doing, I will jump over the turnover. What we are doing the small cogeneration solutions dedicated to energy sector in spatial, not to electricity production only. So we are focusing the heat and the electricity in the same time based on one type of fuel. And our equipments are using natural gas, and since 2018, we are using also the hydrogen. So Kawasaki has a very ambitious roadmap for hydrogen. They started the research in 2012, and we had the first cogeneration plant based on 100% hydrogen in Kobe, commercial running conditions in 2018. Which are our products? Our products are gas turbines and gas engines with a range of power between 1.8 megawatt and 34 megawatt electricity. Beside the products, we cover a certain range of services like engineering, like implementation and maintenance. It is very important, the maintenance. You can see here some technical aspects for our gas turbines. I don't want to insist. You will see our presentation based on Energynomics website. Gas engines also. This is an interesting graph because I told you that we focus the industrial sector where is necessary the steam and the electricity in the same time. So according with the steam, because cogeneration focus to produce more efficient the heat. According with the heat demand of each industrial sector, you can have a result of electricity installed. And you can see here in this graph the differences between 2 technologies, the gas engines and gas turbines. This is our market. As I told you, we are not interested to have huge power plants to produce a lot of electricity. No. We are doing the business in the small and medium size, and we are focusing the industrial sector, which needs steam, hot water, chilled water in the same time with the electricity. And you will see here some type of industrial sector where we have already installations running. As I told you, Kawasaki has a hydrogen roadmap, and we developed a lot of combustor chamber which know very well to burn the hydrogen and natural gas blended in a certain ratio up to 100% hydrogen. The last column, which is called DLA Micromix, is the latest development of Kawasaki regarding the combustion chamber, where we have a very reduced emissions of NOx. So an image of our cogeneration plant in Kobe based on hydrogen, which deliver the heat as hot water for district heating and steam for some industrial clients, plus electricity to Kobe electricity system. So we received an award last year for our latest development of the combustion chamber, as I presented already. And this is our idea and view for the future energy system, where our equipments are very well integrated beside all the other type of sources which produce energy, in special electricity. So that's all in few words, and please, if you have question, I am ready to answer you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cristian. Kind of frustrating the speed you passed through the last slide. Maybe a few more words on those, because I, for one, couldn't read all the boxes there. Please tell us a few words about it.
So you can see here that on the left side of the slide, you have several type of electricity technological equipments which can produce the electricity based on wind, based on light, but we have also a certain power demand and grid. And as I told you at the beginning, when we have not enough wind, when we have not enough light over the night, for example, you can come with our gas turbines or our gas engines to produce the electricity. But in the same time, we are producing also the heat. We are recovering the heat from the ex-house gas for district heating sector, an example, or to produce steam in a tissue paper plant or in a tires plant. So our equipments also can use the hydrogen, but in the same time, we can deliver to the electrolyzers the electricity requested overnight. It's just an example. So we are very well integrated together with all other type of sources. At the end of the day, the question is, which is the optimum mix of energy production for a certain type of client?
Thank you for the clarification. And I think that I should make some suggestion on designing the visual part of this slide. It is much clearer now, but natural gas is too small here. It should be bigger. This should be much more distinct from the rest of the colors there. However,
now are
we'll
equal the squares.
Okay, thank you, and I think it's a presentation which is a very powerful source of ideas for our dialogue. Please, Mr. Dimitar Enchev, first time in a Energynomics event. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. I'm looking forward to hear you.
Thank you. Well, I don't have any slides or presentation. I wasn't aware that I had to prepare something, so I'm just gonna have to wing it. So first of all, a few words about who we are. CWP is a renewable energy developer. We've done some of the largest projects in the region, including what was then the largest wind farm in Europe, the 600 megawatt Fantinele Cojilac project in Romania. We did the largest in Serbia. We never successfully managed to get anything built in Bulgaria. Still trying. We also built the largest renewable energy platform in Australia, which we exited a few months ago. So we've been in this space for 17 years now. We currently have about 5,000 megawatts under development in Southeast Europe, in 8 different markets. Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia and Ukraine are the biggest of them, but also the smaller countries of the Western Balkans. We are starting this year construction on 600 megawatts, half wind, half solar, between Romania and Serbia. Again, nothing in Bulgaria yet. And we're also, CWP Global is also the world's, or one of the world's leading green hydrogen developers. We are behind such projects such as the Asian Renewable Energy Hub, which is a 26 gigawatt project in the Western Australian desert to produce green hydrogen and its derivatives out of the world's cheapest green electricity. Right. As of last year, this is now a project that's partially owned and operated by BP. So they I guess, also believed our vision. So they entered the project. We're still a shareholder, but they're now running the show. And we hope to, start construction there in a couple of years. So we cover the whole spectrum, I would say, right? So we do wind, we do solar, we do energy efficiency, we do storage, we do hydrogen, right? So I think, not being a technology company, we are quite, I would say, unbiased in our views. And I'm going to talk about what we see the path forward for decarbonization and cooperation, I guess, because that's the name of the panel. So obviously the world needs to electrify. That's the number one way to decarbonize, right? We need to get smarter in our energy use, so energy efficiency and more flexibility in our energy use, right? We need to, today the world derives about 19% of its primary energy use from electricity. And that's, by 2050, that's projected to go up to 85, right? So massive build out of new capacity is going to be required. And we're going to have to electrify a lot of stuff. Transportation, industry, heating and cooling. Heat pumps, obviously, a great part of that puzzle. But 20% or so is still going to have to come from molecules, right? And those molecules, these are the so-called hard-to-abate sectors. So long-distance shipping, aviation, some industrial processes, a few other things. There isn't any viable, cost-effective technology in sight to decarbonize those with electricity. So that's going to have to come from molecules. And our vision that has to do with green hydrogen is to make those molecules in places that you're never going to be able to use the electricity any other way, right? So we're not subscribers to the idea that Europe should be making hydrogen, right? I personally think this should be made illegal because we need all the green electrons to go into the energy grid, the electricity grid, right? We're so short clean green power. We're so far away, Germany is restarting coal plants and we're still using lots of coal and gas, right? So, and we're going to add to that problem because we're going to electrify transportation, industry and heating, right? So for us, it's crazy to be trying to make large amounts of hydrogen gas here when you don't have enough green electricity anyways. So our big idea is let's go to places like the Western Australian desert or North Africa or Namibia or Patagonia. Right? This is where we have large-scale projects. Again, many gigawatts, that kind of scale. And we make the molecules there. And if you look at the Asian Renewable Energy Hub, which is 26 gigawatts, it's going to be the largest power plant on the planet. It's 6,500 square kilometers, so 65 by 100. You're going to need 1,000 of those to make that remaining 15-20%, maybe 2,000, right? So this is why the scale of the challenge is enormous. And I personally don't believe that we're going to be fully carbon-free by 2050. I think that's probably a stupid target as well, right? We need to be at net zero, right? We don't need to be at zero. So I think carbon removal and using some natural gas, actually, for some purposes, probably still makes sense, right? Like it's going to be a very small part of the puzzle, but I think we are seeing carbon removal technologies, mostly nature-based, that have about, I would say, $100 per ton in sight, meaning that you can remove carbon that you emit through using natural gas to balance the grid in extreme events, right? You could remove that at $100. Well, then, sorry to say to Kawasaki, but then you shouldn't be burning hydrogen in turbines, right? That doesn't make economic sense. So that's my ramble, a little bit unstructured because I wasn't prepared for a speech, but happy to get into the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, and very, very interesting ideas and very provocative positions. So I think we can declare the dialogue open. If any question, comments from your part, please make yourself visible to me and to the speakers.
Hello, my name is Yana. I'm here with Montel Energetica, and my question is, why do you think you weren't able to successfully complete any projects in Bulgaria? What were the main challenges? Like you apparently managed with non-EU members, so what is the big problem in Bulgaria? Thanks.
So, in our first kind of big effort, which was more than 10 years ago, we didn't get there in time, right? So we were a little bit late, and they removed the support legislation before we could build our project. And we were late not because we started late, but because it takes 7 years to develop a wind farm in Bulgaria, or something like that, right? Yes. So if you look at the EU averages, right? There are a few countries in Europe that are worse than Bulgaria. Croatia is the number one. It takes 10 years to develop a wind farm there and 7 to develop a solar project. Romania is great. Romania is, I think, 3.5 for wind and 1.5, 2 for solar.
I think it's kind of optimistic, but okay, let's take it for granted. Yeah.
But if you have a float project to begin with, then it's more challenging, right? If there is no grid, if you put it in the wrong place, there are some, but here we have projects that are in the right place with plenty of grid capacity, and, we're still spinning our wheels.
What is the problem? I heard earlier about land permitting, which is a problem in Romania too, which is one of the biggest problems. Why does it take 7 years? Where are the biggest bottlenecks in this process?
So
local authorities, maybe, I don't know. There's a problem in Romania.
There isn't a strategic effort by the government to move towards some vision for the energy sector, right? It's, they do it in a piecemeal way. So they don't really have a vision that looks at where we need to be in 10, 15, 20 years and say, okay, so what do we need to do to get there, right? And also what happened in the first wave is that renewables, especially solar, got overbuilt, right? Some wind farms got built where they probably shouldn't have built. And the EU successfully opened the procedure against Bulgaria. And now, and the consequence for the authorities not doing their job was that, you know, there was an infringement procedure, Bulgaria lost, and then the MO became for the authorities is that renewables are the enemy, we need to stop them, right? And they're kind of still trying to shake that approach, I think, to some extent. But yeah, it's mostly administrative burden to get stuff permitted.
Thank you for sharing. I feel like an anonymous alcohol. Okay, other question or comments, please, for the speakers.
Well, that's our ongoing conversation about hydrogen. So, I mean, there are several challenges, obviously, of producing hydrogen where it's not used. First is how to transport it around, and whether ammonia is too toxic to travel around the sea, whether hydrogen is too big to pack it into an LNG ships and all that. But the other thing is that if you have a very large renewable generation in certain regions, so for example, if we start covering coal regions with gigawatts of solar, I mean, already we can see that the generation of solar in this area, in this region, is becoming, is driving prices to zero. And we're far, far away from the full development of solar. So if Bulgaria, for the same reason for which you can't build anything in Bulgaria, there could be huge developments. It sounds absurd, but that's the case, because nobody controls, nobody has a vision. Nobody will stop this development. I mean, everybody is building now. And that means that there will be massive excess of very cheap electricity. Will that not be logical to go into hydrogen production? Not for export, but for local use. I mean, I'm challenging your idea to make it illegal.
Look,
One comment on the Romanian part. Romania was involved, and I think that technically is still involved in the project on the Danube with the hydrogen produced by Hydroelectrica, Nuclear Electrica, with some German companies, to produce hydrogen in the southern part of Romania and transport it through the Danube in the northern part of the continent to be used.
German dream,
which Romania put aside. They said it is not something that we are interested in. And the project is still on the paper, but not functional anymore. I think that it's something on this direction, but please.
Well, there are many ways to waste taxpayer money, right? And EU officials are very creative, but this is an important question, right? A lot of people say we're gonna have so much wind and solar that we're gonna have loads of time when you've got excess electricity, and we can use electrolyzers to absorb that excess and turn it into hydrogen, and then turn the hydrogen into something else, I guess, or use it as an energy source, right? So that argument is, at the first glance,
not turning it back to electricity. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah, fair enough. You turn it, you use it as
feedstock, for everything.
Fair enough.
Part of the molecule that
So I can make electricity in Australia for 2 cents, $20. we've chosen our sites and across the world to have the cheapest wind and solar, but also an inversely correlated generation profile. So I get to a 75% capacity factor. So I can take that 2-cent electricity and make hydrogen for under $2, right? Now, if I started with electricity that's lower than 2 cents, right? And turned it into hydrogen, one could assume that it would be cheaper hydrogen. But that's not how the equation works, because if you build $1 billion electrolyzer plant and you only operate it when there's, the sun is shining or when you have excess electricity 4 hours a day, then this underutilization of your downstream is going to turn the hydrogen cost into $3, right? Even if you're starting with free electricity, or maybe 2.5, right? But you're not starting with free electricity because you need to transmit that electricity, right? Unless you collocate, which means you're doing an integrated plant, it doesn't work, right? So the issue with moving hydrogen, you're absolutely right. You can't really move hydrogen. I think that's probably a pipe dream, pardon the pun. We make its derivatives, or we're trying to make its derivatives and move those. And ammonia is already a globally traded commodity. It's 200 million tons a year, about 25 million tons move on ships today. The other thing we're making is green steel, right? Using the hydrogen as a reduction agent for the iron ore to turn it into steel. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to have these green industrial hubs where massive amounts of green electricity in remote locations are going to be the most competitive places to make lots of stuff. So I can name a few other industrial processes alumina, for example, right? So I think that idea makes sense, but it's probably more efficient from a systems point of view to build that 2 gigawatts of solar and build a battery and just shift the power to the evening and use it that way, because battery has a 95% round trip efficiency, and you're going to be short power in the evening, right? So if it's only a 2-3 hour time shift, it's going to be probably more efficient than, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you for the explanation. And I managed to put here on the screen a slide from a previous event of ours. Last week, I think we have in Bucharest an event dedicated to hydrogen. And this is one slide from one of the speakers representing Horvat, is a company working for the Romanian strategy for hydrogen. It is very supportive for one of your ideas, Dimitar, because here is the price, the share of the energy price in the total price for producing hydrogen. Now it's very large share, and it is expected to remain very high. And I think that we should keep in mind this when discussing about producing hydrogen. So if we manage to find a way to reduce this to 2 cents, or it would make a difference. That would be something relevant. If you wanna jump in, Cristian, Kostantsa, please, on this subject of hydrogen, not necessary. Okay, other questions or comments, maybe on a different aspect of what we heard before? No? Okay, I will turn to Kostantsa to discuss a little bit more about this idea of gas exit. And I just invite you to see the ideas there and your efforts under this concept of cooperation. What would it mean, I suppose, at national level to cooperate in order to reduce the dependence? And this is already happening, I suppose. During the last 2 years, we finally saw many meetings in interministerial conferences, gathering, memorandums signed, and some specific steps were taken already. But also cooperation between companies, between other organizations. Please, if you can elaborate a little bit more here.
Yeah, thank you. I think that one of the key aspects of cooperation on the national level, especially when it comes to Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece, is to cooperate on optimizing our power mix and interconnectivity, because one of the main arguments we are actually currently facing in Bulgaria when it comes to decarbonizing the electricity sector, we are facing this argument that, when we have peak demand in Bulgaria, we also have peak demand in Greece and in Romania, and we cannot rely on interconnections to balance out the huge demand we're going to have, etc., etc. And this
peak production is, we talked earlier, has the same winds, the same.
Yeah, and this kind of argument is being used to say, okay, we need to build 4 new nuclear power plants, we need to build another gas power plant, we need to build like massive amounts of assets that will actually become stranded assets, especially if it's a gas power plant. So I think that one of the key aspects of cooperation here would be to really talk about how the regional electricity mix is going to evolve over the next several years, because also when it comes to updating the NECPs, which should happen this year, we need to talk about that. And I don't think that there is an existing mechanism for Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece to exchange ideas about the update of the NECPs and to talk about what kind of build outs they're planning in terms of new capacity, in terms of demand projections.
You have in mind something like, okay, if Romania is going to build 2 new nuclear reactors, Bulgaria should decide not to. If Bulgaria builds something offshore wind, okay, Romania should get rid of this idea for himself. Something like that?
I mean, this is a very simplified version, but indeed, we need to talk about what kind of build-outs we're talking about, because Romania is building lots of new gas power plants. Greece is building lots of new gas power plants. Does Bulgaria really need a gas power plant as well? I seriously doubt that. And we need to share basically these things. And also we need to talk about cooperation on the company level between companies that manage consumption and drive efficiency on the consumer level, and then establishing new businesses where you can have true demand response in these countries, because we currently do not have that. And having virtual power plants, digitalization, rolling out smart meters, this is something that should be done on the household level, but also in the industry level. And there should be lots of cooperation on rolling out that and making sure that we can really harness the efficiency potential that we have on the national level here.
Thank you for your comments. I will turn to Cristian with one question. I hope to encourage him to talk on a subject that I know he is very passionate of, and that is the something I mentioned earlier. I think the industrial companies seems to embark in full speed on this energy transition process, but only by building PV systems for themselves on the roofs and this is not really decarbonizing industry, especially when we are talking about these hard to abate sectors, cement or something like that. What do you think, Cristian, would make the companies, because there is no demand because the companies do not understand this idea, how to make them understand that they need to invest also in more efficiency on other parts than producing their own energy?
So, regarding the industrial sector, in my opinion, the first step is to try to improve the energy efficiency of the technological process, which means reduction of energy consumption. Energy means not only electricity, means also heat, means also steam consumption, chilled water, and so on. So this is the first step. The second step is, after the implementation of such kind of solutions, you will see exactly which are the needs in terms of energy, in terms of electricity, in terms of steam, in terms of fuel. And I will take an example. Let's think a little bit to a soda plant, for example, because chemical plants in general is a huge consumer of steam, and it is not a, let's say, normal steam. It's a superheated steam, so with high parameters from temperature and pressure point of view. So first of all, you have to improve your technological process to reduce this consumption of steam, and after to see which is the most, the best solution to produce this steam in order to reduce my footprint of carbon. So I shall go to a technology which produce the steam based on the electricity, or I will go to technology which produce the steam based on natural gas, and in this case we will use the cogeneration system, or I will keep my steam boiler and I will take the whole electricity from the grid with green label. Today, unfortunately, at least in Romania, all the industrial sector has this vision. I reduce my footprint of CO2 installing the PVs. It is not true. It is not true. You still have the natural gas consumption to produce only steam, which is an inefficient solution of steam production. So let's... Exactly. So let's use a cogeneration system combined with renewables, and in this case could be a better solution to reduce my footprint of CO2.
Okay, thank you for this idea. We will try to make it tangible for as many industrial companies we can reach to. One final question for you, Dimitar. Please tell me more about how do you see potential cooperation between companies operating in Romania and Bulgaria and the other countries in the region in order to accelerate the transition. We had for many years a period of time where competition was the main word, because there were very few projects and everybody fought hardly with everybody. Now it seems that the projects are much more, many projects, and cooperation seems to be much needed. How do you see this?
Yeah, so if you think about it on a systemic level, right? The whole decarbonization effort is going to be dramatically easier and dramatically cheaper if we have good cooperation, right? And good cooperation, first and foremost, means interconnection, right? Yes, so if you try to decarbonize Bulgaria on its own, right, as an island, that would be super expensive, right? But if you have enough interconnection so that when there isn't any wind here, you're kind of buying Spanish solar or German wind, whatever, relying on a broader grid to supply with different weather patterns to supply energy. And we do a lot of modeling on at a very granular level on the power markets of Southeast Europe and different scenarios, and it is dramatically cheaper if you have more interconnection to decarbonize for everyone, right? So that's at the system level. At the project level, it's a competition. It's not going to be anything else, right? So if I build my project and the price goes to zero, well, then the next guy isn't going to build his, right? So it's a bit of a race. Of course, there are areas where different companies should cooperate, and that's mostly to promote a level playing field and a stable framework, right? But in terms of who builds the wind or the solar, as you said, the wind regime in Bulgaria and Romania are the same, right? So if Romania builds 10 gigawatts of wind, well, then people aren't going to be incentivized to build here because they're going to know that there is going to be a lot of power pushing down from Romania, and the economics won't work, right? So I think
There is a race. There is a race which is there first.
And as a country, right? Each country needs to realize that, because whether the investment is done here or in Romania doesn't matter maybe for the power market that much, but it matters a lot for local investment, local jobs, taxes, and so on, right? So it's I guess it's a story of both competition and cooperation in this decarbonization space.
And at least in the way we present it, this seems an unsolvable problem, because the interconnection is destroyed by this inevitable, it seems, competition between countries and companies. Please.
Thank you. One question, maybe provocative. You mentioned network connections between countries, but in Bulgarian case, when the connections between our network, our grid with Romania and Greece, this was this was connected with the jump prices, and we weren't surprised about this. We knew that when this connection started, the prices will jump highly, and we said this information in our discussion with the different political parties, because in Bulgaria after 4 months now we have elections, and this connection with the grids was before one of the elections. So in our case, these connections just bring this situation of higher prices. And we can see that in some countries in Europe, in some days, the prices are very, very low. But in Bulgaria, we cannot reach prices before 2 years when these connections didn't exist.
Yes.
Right. So I think prices changed from 2 years ago because of very different factors than the coupling you're talking about, right? And the physical connections were always there. We're talking about market coupling. Is that a bad thing? Bulgaria exported 3.5 billion euros worth of electricity last year. You think we should have closed the borders and not collected that 3.5 billion? I don't.
Still the problem exists. It seems that the eastern countries, the countries in the eastern part of Europe are importing more expensive electricity from Germany, for example. Seems to
that's not true.
Without the compensation mechanism, it's awful for them.
No, but if you're an exporter, you're always incentivized to have better interconnection and more trade,
I will add immediately. I will give you the microphone. I will add another perspective to the one Dimitar showed up, and I said the other thing. In case, at least for Romania, the prices of electricity were too low for too many decades. The coupling meant that the prices we saw are more real, are better related to the realities in the economies in Romania and in the region, and I think that is a good thing. And these higher prices made the consumers much more conscientious on this issue, and brought the issue of energy efficiency more powerful in the industry and also for the households. Please.
Yeah, I actually want to build on what you just said. I mean, before the Center for the Study of Democracy, I used to work for a market analytics company, and I would always look at prices as a signal. So the prices are the way the market communicates that something is going on, either with supply or demand, that needs to change. And without the price signal, you would never have investment decisions. You would never have any change in the market. So the prices are the way for the market to drive change, to drive investments. And without a changing in the price, this will never happen and you will never move forward. Of course, prices go up and they go down. And this is a natural thing and it drives change. So I really don't see how this should be regarded as a negative thing.
Yeah, one more idea in this respect. Romania had almost zero investments in 20 years because of artificially administrative low prices for energy. And except for the short period of time or investment for renewables, there was no investment because the prices were too low and no investor was interested to come in the country and build up something new. We are very close to the finish line, let's say. If any comments or questions still, please. If not, thank you very much. Ladies, gentlemen, Julian and all of you for participating. We'll have articles following up this conversation, published on Energynomics, some newsletters, and also the recording will be available on YouTube, and we will send it for you. We will also publish the presentations if all the speakers will agree on that. Thank you. Thank you very much. We can have another 30 minutes of conversation around the coffee. Thank you.